Good evening. Welcome to the Scotch Fanwood Board of Education regular public meeting. Today is Thursday, November 17th, 2022. Mr. Jones, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bauer,
Here.
Ms. Boroff,
Here.
Ms. Brody, Mrs. Mitchell,
Here.
Ms. Soriani,
Here.
Ms. Williams, Ms. Winkler,
Here.
Mr. Murray,
Here.
Dr. Kolakowski.
Here. Quorum is present. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Please join me in the salute to the flag. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We just came out of executive session. And during executive session, we had some board docs review with Mr. Jones, personnel report with Mr. Patuco, HIB review, Dr. Mast, suspension and detention report, Dr. Rabimbus, and legal status report with Douglas Sylvester. We do have some additions to the agenda this evening. We have 3 LET, 1 additional letter was sent to the board, and 2 S, 1 additional out-of-district placement. At this time, Dr. Mask, we have the superintendent's report, please.
So we have a very packed agenda tonight, but still, since we're in this season of gratitude, I just want to express my joy regarding our dedicated Board of Education, the commitment of our administrators, many of them are here tonight, our teachers and our entire staff, our amazing students, our coaches and our advisors for supporting our students beyond academics, and our involved and caring parents and community. Our whole community are our partners in what makes our schools work and what makes us SPF proud. So I hope everyone is going to have a happy Thanksgiving season, and I'm looking forward to a very packed yet positive meeting this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mast. Business Administrators Report, Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Just one item I wanted to highlight tonight on the agenda is we're asking for permission to go out to bid for our before-after care services. So we spent a lot of time looking at different needs, and we have different educators. We've talked about it, and we've got a lot of feedback. And so this is just to go out to the bid. Then we will have a second approval, most likely in January, with the firm or service that we choose, and it'll be outlined in the agenda, the reasons why. So that's it coming. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. Student Board of Ed Rep Report for the first time, Ms. Jada Montgomery.
Hi. So for my first student report, I decided to work with Dr. Heisey to send out a survey to the student body. This was just kind of a very general survey. I'm going to read off the questions. Before I start with the report, we have about 1,500 students at the high school. This survey sample size is very small. We had about 140 responses. So the statistics are, so across all 4 grade levels, we had about 36 seniors respond. We had about 44 juniors respond. We had about 29 sophomores respond, and we had same number of freshmen respond, 29. So the questions asked were, if there was one thing you would change about the high school, what would it be? And we've got about 64 responses to that. And then we kind of just did some statistics on study hall. Majority of students do have a study hall. We asked if they feel they're utilizing their study hall to the best of their ability. Majority of the students answered on the higher scale, so majority of students are utilizing their study hall very well. We also asked, do you feel you have the opportunity to challenge yourself academically? Majority of students then also answered on the higher level. Majority of students do challenge themselves academically. And then it's just kind of a fun question, to what extent are you involved in student clubs and activities? Majority of our students, over 50%, are involved in at least one or more clubs or activities. And then we also asked the question, what could SPFHS do to better support the student body? We got about 60 responses to that. And then we also just put in some potential courses and electives. One of the electives I put in was AP Psychology, which is getting approved to be offered in the 2023-2024 school year. So student responses, basically just feelings about wanting to bring back student breakfasts, which I think are in talks for. Questions and kind of small concerns about the bathroom policy, but Dr. Heisey is working to remedy that. And I think a pertinent thing that should be more so addressed is student awareness on where to access like mental health accessibility. So student counselor ratio, trying to build student relationships with their counselors so they know to go to their counselor if they're having, a bad day or just issues beyond problems with their schedule. We also do have Mr. Dory as a new hire this year, who is our student assistance coordinator. And then just a general report rule of thumb as a senior, just a little college timeline as to where everybody is in the application process. So our first kind of round of early actions were October 15th, November 1st, and this past November 15th. So for early action results, seniors should be expecting those in December or January. Regular decisions are due more in the first week of January, and those results should be coming in around March and April. And then we have our winter sports season starting on Monday, November 28th. And that goes for all of our winter sports, regardless of level. Our fall play is premiering tomorrow night. You can get the tickets at spfrep.com. The play is called She Kills Monsters. Also upcoming, we have our annual blood drive coming on December 5th, where we're mostly expecting juniors and seniors at this time of year for our first blood drive can donate blood. We also are working with the student government and the Red Cross Club to have that. I also, if anybody is willing, I have some copies of the Fan Scotian here with me. We just released them on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thanks, Jada. Thank you, Jada. It's a wonderful report. And it's really wonderful to have you here tonight and
Thank you.
part of the board and to hear from our students, you bringing the survey results. And certainly the results will be brought from you to Dr. Mass to talk to the high school administration about those issues that you have concerns about.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Board of Education offices, 512 Cedar Street, Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Such notice was also provided in written notice and forwarded to the Union County Hawk, the Star Ledger, the Township Clerk of Scotch Plains, and the Borough Clerk of Fanwood, and the revised annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings as adopted April 28, 2022. Now, at this time, we're going to go for our instructional updates. The first one is going to be the annual audit presentation. Dr. Mans?
So, Mr. Jones?
Go ahead. Kathy Mantell. This is our partner for our audit firm.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me here. I understand you have a big agenda tonight. The best thing I can say is that the audit in Scotch Plains Fanwood is always a good audit. It's another good audit, and I don't think you should take that lightly. I think it reflects so much effort, and we all say that the tone starts at the top with all of you, and it permeates down through, and I'm telling you, it is really a remarkable district. I work with many, and I'm very happy to be working with you, so thank you for that opportunity. So I will be brief. We just delivered the audit books this evening, and it's about 170 pages, and really, truly, being in this business for decades, this is what you need to know. So I do the little financial highlights, and it really has all the information that is pertinent. And so fund balance, I compare it last year to this year. You're up 4.7 million, and I say you always have to look at how each component of fund balance changed. You can see the encumbrances or the open purchase orders. They can fluctuate from year to year depending upon if you have projects going on in the summer. If you do, the encumbrances could be higher in any given year. You have a capital reserve and a maintenance reserve. Money was placed in the capital reserve this year, and I also want to note, one of the end comments is all the long-term liabilities of the district. Your bonds were paid off in July of '22, just 2 months after, or 2 weeks after this balance sheet date. So the district no longer has that obligation for principal and interest, and also the tax levy associated with that has fallen off as well. So now the district has built a capital reserve. Those monies are used for any projects in the long-range facilities plan, the local share. And so we had a short conversation with finance today saying that strategically for the district, capital reserve can be used for anything. So it can be T&E projects or it can be non-T&E projects. When you get into T&E or educational projects, there's usually state participation in that. So there have been some recent allocations of SDA grants where the state will pay 40% of an approved project. And then if the district had a referendum, again, it's eligible for state participation. So it's really important as you're moving through your capital needs that whenever you can access that 40% state aid. And then we say the capital reserve is for anything that may not be approved by the state as an eligible project. You have that in hand. So the increase in fund balance primarily comes from unexpended budget appropriations. And again, it's been a rocky road. I just got over COVID myself after 2.5 years, and I couldn't believe it. So just what it has done to the district, the unknowns for the last 2.5 years. The state increased the unassigned fund balance from 2% to 4%. It's going to go back to 2% next year. All that means is that they take 2 or 4% of your expenditures for the year. And you can keep that as unassigned. And so what it did is it did away with excess surplus. Excess surplus is the amount that you would have as excess reported, and you would be forced to use it to offset your next budget. So last year you didn't have excess, and we had the conversation with Christopher, who was brand new, saying that you're going to have to use that unassigned to continue that. And so go to the bottom of the page. I show you how much fund balance the district has been using. Pre-pandemic, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million. But over the last 2 years, you have been using it for various purposes, but they're one-time purposes. So the goal is to get back to somewhere around $1 million. I see Christopher shaking his head. We have these conversations and we make sure everybody knows what the plan is, or you fill me in as to what direction the district's moving in. But this front page says financial stability, responsibility. You're doing a fantastic job with what you have. So you're to be commended for that. And then on the second page, again, just recount what was deposited in the capital reserve for the year, and some unexpended, when you do use the funds for a project and it's not expended in full because you achieve some savings, it goes back to those reserves. So at the end of the year, $12.6 million in capital reserve and $1.6 million in maintenance reserve. Another area that was affected by the pandemic was the food service operation. And the district was not in the federal program. Have a lot of school districts who were, and they have a lot of federal subsidies that they received. And it's very difficult figuring out what they can use that money for. So in Scotch Plains, you fared very well. Again, having new people in the business office, making sure that we're all on the same page. We anticipated that there would be some kind of a board contribution to break even this year, and that amount is in the middle of the page as the board contribution. It was $51,529. You've only operated for 1 month, 2 months. You have 1 month results that you can look at, but again, Christopher feels good that it's going to be better this year, and he's going to monitor it. So that was not a bad result for what you've been through for the past 2.5 years. And then the last note is just what the long-term liabilities for the district are. I just said that the serial bonds were paid off on July 15th of '22. You have some lease agreements, compensated absences for the employees when they terminate. There's some premiums that will go to zero because the bonds were paid off. And then the net pension liability is the PERS portion only, because the state pays for the TPAF portion, so it's not reflected in the district's financials as a liability. And then other post-employment benefits are those benefits that are offered by the district that are not through the state plan. And those liabilities are very long-term. That is the liability for everyone who's involved in pension and post-employment benefits based on actuarial data until they would no longer be eligible for them. So, and then I can say that there are no audit recommendations. And again, you had turnover in your business office. That's usually when you'll see some fallout. There was none. It was a very streamlined transition, and nothing came up as a matter of that transition. So again, commendation to everyone. We made a management suggestion concerning the COVID grants because we have a compliance supplement that we have to follow, and it's only so much. If they came in to monitor those grants, they're going to be much more thorough, much more stringent. And so we're just advising districts, and we're in sync. We get the directives in terms of County BA informing us what's going on with those grants. But we make sure we have clear communication so that if the district was monitored for those, that they would have a good result, have all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted. And then my last comment is, we qualified the opinion on the financials this year because there's a footnote on post-employment benefits that are provided by the state. And for the last 3 or 4 years, the information comes out late, and last year it came out on February 9th, and we don't expect it to be out any sooner. And so we had the conversation with Christopher to see if he felt comfortable with qualifying it, and the qualification says that the information in that footnote reflects the latest information, which is June of 2020, but the GASB requires that the information be no older than 12 months prior to this balance sheet date. So we would need to report the information for June of 21. And again, it's a footnote. It is not in the financials as a liability or a revenue or an expenditure. And so we felt pretty comfortable that it would have, and we have confirmed with bond rating agencies that will have no negative effect on the district. We would never jeopardize our school districts. So just wanted to make you aware of that so that if you heard it or somebody said, oh, we have a qualified opinion this year, that you wouldn't be surprised. So that's it. That's all I have. And anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions around the table? No, thank you. Oh, but thank you
Fabulous.
very much for the report.
Well, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thanks
Thank you.
for having me.
Happy holidays.
If I could just make a brief comment.
Go right
you know,
ahead, Dr.
and
Mast.
it's kind of echoing what Kathy said, but our business department had a big turnover in institutional knowledge. And the new team with Christopher Jones as our BA and James Canellis as the assistant BA, and their department, which is 3 other people, they just made the transition seamless. And, congratulations on such a positive audit report, and extend that to your department.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mast. Recognition for the girls varsity gymnastics team. Mr. Ryan, are you coming
Yes, so
up?
at this time, if Mr. Miller could come up and lead the celebration on the girls' great success. We are so proud.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming, or for being here, and thank you for having me. We have a couple of gymnasts, so why don't you guys come on up? The gymnastics program this year had another remarkable season. We entered a couple of different tournaments. We started off the year with the Hillsborough Raider Invitational. We walked out of that with a championship trophy. We then went to the Cougar Invitational, and for the 2nd year in a row, came out as champions in that tournament. And then for the 4th consecutive year, we won the Union County Championship, which is a wonderful thing because when you win it, you get to host it. So for the last 3 years, we've been able to win that championship in our home gym, and it's just been a remarkable ride. I know Shay is here. Shay hasn't seen a county championship that she hasn't won, so we're very proud to have a senior who's been able to lead our program and be an example for others. And the greatest part about this gymnastics team this year is the way that they all got along and the way they all supported each other. It's a very difficult and trying sport. It's a sport where you're judged for every movement, every foot placement, every landing, and it's incredibly competitive. And to have a team of 18 or 19 young athletes that actually support one another and want to see them improve every day is truly remarkable. Coach DeBella and Coach Bozatarnik unfortunately had to work tonight and they were unable to attend, but one of the big pieces that we wanted to create in gymnastics was that teamwork environment. And because of that, I believe that we're champions. And I'm so proud of this program. I'm so proud of all of you, and thank you for being here. And congratulations to our Union County Championship gymnastics team.
That's right.
So read the resolution,
Okay.
and then.
Then we'll come for a picture after this. Okay, whereas the 2022 varsity gymnastics team had another remarkable season in the history of gymnastics at Scotch Plains Fanwood High School. And whereas the team completed two Invitational Raider Invitational at Hillsborough on September 17th, with the Cougar Invitational at Cranford on October 7th, earning first place in both. Whereas the team hosted the Union County Interscholastic Athletic Conference Championship on October 20th and earned the fourth consecutive Union County Championship. And whereas the 2022 gymnastics team was comprised of the following athletes: Ella Bergio, grade 11, Ava Campanelli, grade 9, Delaney Farley, grade 9, Shaylin Farley, grade 12, Ava Fazio, grade 11, Andy Ferguson, grade 10, Jessica Gallagher, grade 12, Jessica Glander, grade 12, Caitlin Haar, grade 9, Mary Kate Hoffman, grade 10, Erin Kennedy, grade 11, Ava Leonetti, grade 12, Leslie Lubelin, grade 11, Nicole Perez, grade 9, Jordana Reisberg, grade 12, Ashley Shakia, grade 11, Sarah Sicoli, grade 11, and Maureen Whitney, grade 9. Whereas the varsity gymnastics team exhibited outstanding talent, dedication, and teamwork throughout the season and was led by head coach Marissa DeBella and coach Tara Bozatarnik, and the team received well-determined recognition for fellow student, staff, and Scotch Plains Fanwood communities for their outstanding efforts and accomplishments. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education recognizes and congratulates the 2022 varsity gymnastics team and their coaches, Marissa DeBella and Tara Bozdanarik, with outstanding achievements and wishes them continued success in all their future endeavors. Congratulations.
Mr. Miller, if you could come up with our celebrated gymnast, just for a photo, please.
Right here.
Mr. Murray, perhaps you could come on the other side. Great job.
Thank you for coming up.
I'm glad Mr. Miller has stayed.
Yes.
Because we are
He
going
knows.
to move to,
Recognition of the coaches of the year, Mr. Miller.
There's a lot of different organizations for coaches, but the National Federation of Scholastic Coaches picks one coach of the year for each sport for each state. In the last 12 years, Scotch Plains Fanwood High School has had one that's earned this honor. The honor is not anything that you can nominate somebody for. It's that federation just goes through what occurred in the state, the reputation of the program, and they decide. And then we get a letter that says, hey, congratulations, you have these coaches of the year. So it's well documented how strong our spring was. We had an outstanding ring ceremony for a lot of our programs at a football game, and we get to honor 3 of those coaches again tonight. Coach Brock Hoare for boys volleyball, Coach Jeff Cagle for girls track and field, and Coach Nick Maselli for boys lacrosse. So you guys have to come stand up here. I can't make the athletes stand. So I'm going to go in program age order just to give a little bit about each coach. Coach Brock Hoare from our boys volleyball program has been here since its inception. We have not seen a county championship that we haven't won. It's 4 or 5. I think it's 5. 4. Hoping for 5 this year. I think, by winning our section, I think we are the youngest program in state history to ever win a state title, because the boys volleyball program has only been around for a very, very short time. And what Coach Brock has been able to do by building this program from the bottom up, by taking a strong recommendation in our first 2 years to stay at JV, even though we had a lot of pressure to move up quickly, built in a JV program, a freshman program, a PAL program that's thriving, and we just continue to be one of the strongest programs in the state. Coach Brock wanted to make sure last year that we got a top seed, and I don't know how he did it, but every team we played as an independent at some point was in the top 20 in New Jersey. And because of that, and because we were able to win, we ended up with the top seed and we won the section. We had to defeat Union 4 times to do it. But we won the county over at Kane University, and then we won the section at home, and we succumbed to the eventual state champion in the finals, but in a great 3-set match. So congratulations to Coach Brock. This one I know is a fact. In boys lacrosse, we are the youngest program in lacrosse history in New Jersey to win a state title, winning our Group 3 title last year. Coach Maselli, 10 years ago, made a statement that he felt in 10 years that we were going to win a state title, and this was year 10, and this is when it happened. It's a credit to what Coach Maselli does with our youth program and his knowledge of what our program can be and what our youth are doing. His collaboration with not only our youth program but also our high school coaches is what's creating this dramatic shift in boys lacrosse. We won a couple of divisions. We watched the program move up and up. This year we were able to defeat Summit in overtime when the clock broke, so that was a really fun day. The Summit parents were really happy about that. They thought there was some kind of gamesmanship in a golden goal overtime. I don't know, but it was a remarkable year. We had a great state sectional final here against Chatham that got weather delayed. Dr. Mast had a bunch of Chatham parents in her office, and we had people taking cover everywhere. And both coaches, both ADs, agreed to waive the rule of suspension and waited it out, and just had a remarkable comeback in that game. Very difficult game against Randolph, and then we really came together in our final. And we ended the season in the Tournament of Champions. A little bit overwhelmed at first by Bridgewater, and then we came back and won the second half, but we just didn't win by enough to advance. So Coach Maselli really just continues to be a shining example of how to build a program, how to build it the right way, and how to achieve success. Congratulations, Coach Maselli. Coach Cagle's been with us for a little while. We'll just say a little while. The first thing I want to make sure that I don't forget to say is the National Federation of High Schools, nfhslearn.org, provides a whole bunch of coaching accreditation and coaching courses that can be taken by any coach. Coach Cagle every year retakes these courses and gets level 1, 2, or 3 certified. Not because he doesn't know every answer to everything, but because he's looking to see if there's one more new thing he can pick up to be just that much better at his job. And that example that Coach Cagle sets for his athletes is what leads us to success out on the track and field. Our team this year had a great start in the winter. We won the Group 3 title in winter track. If you missed it, it's because you got there for the second event, because we kind of opened up, took 1, 2, and 3 in the winter, and almost scored enough points to win the whole event in one race because we had some strong talent. The section over at Ridge was well run, and we had more than just our stars providing support in terms of advancing in section. And then the group final over at Franklin was touch and go for a little while. Some things didn't go our way. A couple of teams stepped up where we didn't expect them to. And when you think about track and field, you kind of have a high expectation of what's going to happen when you get there, because everybody's race results are on this app called Mile Split. So you know who's who and who's where. And when somebody steps outside of that boundary and actually has a better race than they're supposed to, it puts a little bit of pressure on us. But we came back and won it. The team has been remarkable, but what Coach Cagle brings on a day-in, day-out basis is a passion for coaching that has not dwindled in all of his time here, and we're just so proud of Coach Cagle. Congratulations.
I have to read from the script. I'm not on free form.
Oh,
So.
no notes. That was amazing.
No, I have to read notes.
Yeah, I do too.
Whereas the National Federation of High School Coaches Associations annually selects a Coach of the Year for each New Jersey Interscholastic Athletic Association sponsored sport. Selection criteria are based upon the overall performance of the varsity team, sportsmanship displayed by the program, the overall positive impact the coach has on their sport within the conference, county, and state. And whereas Scotch Plains Fanwood Athletics is proud to honor 3 recipients of this award for the first time in school history. And whereas Coach Brock Hoare, boys volleyball coach, Coach Jeff Cagle, girls track and field coach, and Coach Nick Maselli, boys lacrosse coach, have earned this prestigious honor. And whereas Coach Brock Hoare led the boys volleyball program to their 5th consecutive Union County Interscholastic Athletic Conference Championship as the only Union County school to be the champion of this tournament, as well as first in school history North 2 section title, one of only 4 programs in the state. And whereas Jeff Cagle led the girls track and field program to a North 2 Group 3 sectional championship, as well as their first in school history Group 3 championship. And whereas Nick Maselli led the boys lacrosse program to the first in school history North Group 3 sectional championship and Group 3 championship. Whereas each of these coaches has exhibited positive sportsmanship, a genuine care for their athletes and program, and acknowledges that their program success is a credit to the assistant coaches, parents, and athletes. And now therefore be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education recognizes and congratulates head coaches Brock Hoare, Jeff Cagle, and Nick Maselli for their outstanding achievements and wishes them continued success in all their future endeavors.
And if I could invite you up for the picture, please. And Ryan and Evan. Congratulations.
Well, congratulations to the girls' gymnastics and to the coaches. We appreciate that you took the time to come out this evening. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of our instructional updates and the rest of our board meeting, but we understand if you have other things to get home to do. Next for the instructional update will be the presentation of the district testing report by Dr. Robert McGarry.
Oh, we can move.
Someone want to sit here?
Move this over here so the people in the cheap seats can see. So thanks to Jada for getting us started with some data tonight. That was a pleasure and unexpected. So good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to be able to join you for our annual state assessment report, highlighting student achievement data from the 21-22 school year through the lens of the State Department of Education. The focus of tonight's presentation is on 3 assessment systems mandated and overseen by the NJDOE, the New Jersey Student Learning Assessments, the Dynamic Learning Maps, and the Access for ELLs. Before I turn to reporting results, it's important to note that test scores can only give us an indication of how a certain group of students performed on a test at a certain time. They don't tell you the whole story, as we will hear from our own students at the close of the presentation. They don't tell you about the richness of our curriculum and the richness of all the ways in which our students, through the rigorous efforts of our teachers and administrators, continue to learn, to develop passions and interests, and to grow and excel in ways that a single test given on a certain date could never show us. Preparing and implementing state assessments truly takes a village, and the collaboration of everyone who serves in the roles listed here. Special thanks to Lisa Howard and Tim Donahue, Lisa who's here tonight, over there, and our Board of Education Curriculum Committee members who offered feedback on this presentation and who consistently support the work we do for all of our students. And while they're here tonight, I might as well take a moment to introduce our curriculum supervisors and our special ed supervisors. We have, from the far side of the room, Dr. Liz McKenna, supervisor of ELA grades 6 through 12, Noel Baxter, supervisor of social studies and media centers, K through 12. We have our newest supervisor, Ms. Kelly Dunstan, supervisor of ELA K through 5. We have next to her Andrea Temesco, supervisor of special education grades 5 through 12. Diane Panino, supervisor of special education grades K through 4. Behind her, in the next row, we have Gita Faria, who is our supervisor of science, engineering, and gifted and talented. Lisa Howard, who is our supervisor of world languages and ESL. And Sarah Cayley, who is our supervisor of 6 through 12 mathematics. Thanks for being here tonight and for being willing to pitch in case my voice goes out. With that said, we'll begin with the DLM, or the Dynamic Learning Maps. The DLM is taken by some students with the most significant cognitive disabilities, particularly those for whom general state assessments are not appropriate, even with accommodations. DLM assessments offer these students a way to show what they know and can do in English language arts, mathematics, and science. DLM student score reports provide results related to a student's overall performance level for the subject. And student results are reported using one of 4 performance levels: emerging, approaching, target, and advanced. Under FERPA, the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act, state reporting of disaggregated student data such as student subgroups may not be published if the results would yield personally identifiable information about an individual student. In New Jersey, the minimum N size for reporting is 10. So with such a small number of students in grades 3 through 8 and 11 taking the DLM, we're unable to provide grade-specific information. So you'll see the results sort of aggregated for all of the students who took the DLM. When used in combination with multiple measures of achievement, such as classroom observations and teacher-developed tests, the DLM assessment provides information about the progress of groups of students as well as the effectiveness of our educational programs. The DLM provides timely and meaningful information about student performance that allows teachers to target instruction to individual student needs and administrators to more fully understand what students know and are able to do and to guide curriculum and professional development decisions. The Access for ELLs is taken annually by English language learners who we might also know as, quote, emergent bilingual individuals. Which sort of gives a more of an asset view to them than the term English language learner. These assessments help us monitor students' progress in learning academic English, which is the type of English you need for reading and understanding study materials in a specific subject, as well as writing about those subjects. The assessment is used to determine when a student has a level of proficiency in academic English that may no longer require English as second language services. It's important to note that all students identified as limited English proficient are required to take the assessment annually, even if families waive ESL services. This year, 80 students were required to take the access, which is a 24% increase over the previous year. And of the 80 students who took the access in the spring of 2022, 19 of them, or 23.8%, scored above the cutoff required to exit our ESL program. That's an increase of over last year's 18.4% and is comparable to the 23% pre-pandemic exit rate. So we'll now turn our attention to the NJSLA, or the New Jersey Student Learning Assessments, which were given for the first time since 2019 in ELA for grades 3 through 9, mathematics in grades 3 through 7, as well as algebra 1 and geometry, and science in grades 5, 8, and 12. And we're going to start with like the big picture question. The big picture question being, how do SPF results compare to state results? So with the state in gray on the left of each pair of bars, and SPF in Raider blue, of course, the next 3 slides show a quick comparison of our students' meeting or exceeding expectations performance relative to the state. Here in ELA, you can see SPF outperformed the state by 9% in grade 7 to 22% in grade 9. Here's the same comparison in math, where all SPF grades outperformed the state. You'll notice that 3rd graders and 4th graders outperformed the state in meeting or exceeding expectations by 28%. And I will say, I meant to say this at the beginning, this will all be online. There's like 70 slides, and it's a lot of detail that you may want to engage with at your leisure. And finally, here's the big picture in science. What's worth noting here is the lower percentage of students meeting expectations in 8th grade. Of course, your eyes might also go to the poor performance across the state in science. It's worth noting that for much of these students' middle school years leading up to this assessment, the 8th graders in particular, science learning was accomplished without the kinds of hand-on experiments that we know lead to a depth of understanding of concepts and relevant skills. So that's the big picture. Moving sort of into a more close picture, I want to set our lens to look at this data. So in past years, we would be reporting sort of trend data over a period of 5 years and how we performed. So since we don't have testing data from 2020 and 2021, year-over-year comparisons and cohort progress is really not possible to report. I will show you some comparisons of cohorts that did have test data, but it's 3 years in between the tests. Since 2019, state graduation requirements have been modified or have eliminated passing a state assessment over the last few years. You know, it used to be sort of a really important thing to pass these assessments because graduation from high school depended upon it. Those requirements have been modified or been completely eliminated in years past. So students' drive to do well on these may have been impacted. It's also important to remember that the data sets presented here reflect one measure used in each subject to help us understand each learner and to plan for and promote each student's growth. And that the assessment only covers mathematics, English language arts, and science in some grade levels, and not all of the subjects that we truly value in our school district. So setting our data lens, you're going to be seeing a lot of bar graphs coming up. I just wanted to sort of give you a sense of what you'll be seeing. So at the top, you'll see the subject and grade level. It'll either say math, science, or ELA and a grade level. On the left-hand side, you're going to see results from 2018-19 And you'll see two sets of bars. One is the state and one is SPF in that year. And then on the other side, you'll see the most recent results from 21-22, again with the state on the left and SPF on the right. In science, you won't see an 18-19 result because we don't have them. So you'll only see state in 2022 and SPF in 2022. And just as a reminder, because it's been a couple years since we've looked at this, there are 5 different performance levels in ELA and math, from not yet meeting grade level expectations up to exceeding grade level expectations. And that the data I'm going to present tonight is percentages of students scoring at each level. And in science, 4 levels, from below proficient to advanced proficient. Everybody good so far?
Good.
So we'll be looking at results a little differently this year. We're going to look at them across grade bands rather than by content areas. Typically, we would have gone through like math, grades 3 through algebra 2, and ELA, grades 3 through 9 or 10. This year, we're going to sort of focus our efforts on grade bands, and it's really important to do so because I believe it helps us to see the COVID-19 impacts upon students within the grade bands differently. So we're going to start with grades 3 through 5, keeping in mind that whether you were a 5th grader or a 3rd grader in 2022, this was your first experience with the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment. We believe that year-to-year experience with the format of NJSLA contributes to some increases in performance over years. That effect for 4th and 5th graders was really nullified in 2022. So just to give you sort of a lead through this again. So over on this side, you see 18 and 19 with, you see the state in 18-19, SPF in 18-19, and then you see 21-22, the state and SPF. And that's the situation you'll see for each of these slides going forward. As you will with many of these slides, you'll see what I describe as a widening of the yellow level and a fairly consistent percentage of students in the orange and red levels from 18-19 to 21-22. And of course, here's the exception to the rule I just gave you, 3rd grade math, where the yellow stayed consistent over the 2 years. In ELA 4, we see a slight decrease, 6%, in the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations, and a 4% decrease in mathematics. Again, pay attention to that yellow, the yellow being approaching grade level expectations. In ELA 5, we see an increase in both approaching expectations and partially meeting expectation levels. That's the yellow and orange. And the same in 5th grade math. So we close out our look at this grade band with science in grade 5. And as you can see, some really disappointing performances statewide with a better look in SPF in terms of those outcomes. And again, these students had learned science with hands off for a number of years prior to this assessment. And this was their first state science assessment ever. So this brings us to grades 6 through 8. The last time these students took the NJSLA, they were in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Students' familiarity with such tests certainly plays a role in their performance year over year. And so this is really important, again, to keep in mind as we consider the results in this grade band and the cohort analysis, which we'll get to later on. Most of our 18-19 to 21-22 comparisons at the middle school level provide really good illustrations of the widening middle, something that the pandemic likely caused, and not just in test scores, if you catch my drift. Here you see it in ELA grade 6. The yellow in 18-19, that approaching was 14. It grew to 24% in 21-22. You see it here also in Math 7, but notice how the orange and red, Notice how the orange and red levels are fairly consistent over time, as you'll see in the slides coming up. In ELA 7 and in Math 7. In ELA 8, the approaching expectations more than doubled between 18-19 and 21-22. Went from 7% in that middle, we were in really good shape there, to 18% in the middle in 21-22. And then lastly, here are the Algebra 1 results. Again, you see growth in that approaching expectations between 18-19 and 21-22. And these are a combination of our 8th and 9th grade students. We offer Algebra 1 to all students in 8th grade, and we do have some students who then take it in 9th grade as well. Last in the grade band are the science scores, with the state percentages on the left and SPF percentages on the right. So the final grade band we're going to look at tonight is the high school, students for whom much of the 7th and 8th grade curriculum was delivered in virtual or hybrid formats. As you will recall, in ELA, our 2022 9th graders performed similarly to our 2019 students, off by just 5% in meeting or exceeding expectations compared to 2019. So if you see this, the combination of the 50 and 20, 70, and this combination being about 75% in terms of the green in 18-19. Again, geometry results saw a widening of the middle or the yellow level, but it's important to remember that students at this level are approaching expectations. For us, that's a strong suggestion of for whom we need to target our learning acceleration efforts. And then in Science 11, where almost half the state was below proficient, we fared much better. Again. Now the following slides are going to put our performance in each subject together in tight visuals. With ELA, so you'll see ELA 3 through 9, showing much more green than the other colors combined across all grades, so that's a positive thing. I particularly wore a green tie tonight to focus on the green. In math, with the exception of grade 6, we see the same. And science showing more green than red or yellow in 11th grade. The following slides are those that I was referring to earlier about how some of our 2022 test takers performed with their prior NJSLA assessment in 2019. Prior to these slides, we've been comparing different groups of students in the same grade at different years. The following slides allow us to look at the same group of students at 2 different points, well before the pandemic and 2 years after it began. So this slide shows us how last year's 6th graders' performance in ELA compared to their performance in 3rd grade in 2019. You can see a very slight 1% increase over time for this cohort of students in meeting or exceeding expectations, while we see an increase in approaching expectations in math. Seventh graders, this year current 8th graders, will be in mind as we continue our efforts at learning acceleration, as evidenced by the ELA outcomes here. We certainly, this cohort of students, you can't say they lost ground because this test and this test are testing different content and different standards. But they weren't performing at the level they performed at in 4th grade, for sure. And the math outcomes here. Again, with that large middle here. that we need to address. When they were in 8th grade, our current 9th graders met or exceeded grade level standards similarly to how they did in 5th grade. So you can sort of see these are students who are now in 9th grade, and they performed similarly in 5th and in 8th grade. While the students, cohort of students now in 10th grade will require some continued monitoring as that yellow, orange, and red has expanded. So now we're going to take a look at disaggregated results by gender, by race, ethnicity, and by program for students who met or exceeded expectations. On the slides that will follow, you'll notice some asterisks in certain cells. That's because the number of students in this category is less than 10 and not reportable in public. We'll start with ELA data. And again, this is a lot to take in. It'll be on the website for you to view at your leisure. On this slide, you see the breakdown by gender, noticing that males and females are performing above state averages or percentages, but that in ELA, male-identified students do not perform as well as female-identified students. If you take a look here in comparison. This slide shows disaggregated data by race and ethnicity, and it's important to notice here the number of students in each grade in each category. So you'll see a percentage, and below you'll see the number of students that percentage represents. The smallest of which is just 11 students down here in grade 8, and the largest of which is 283 students in grade 7 who are identified as white students. You'll notice that all of the groups in this slide are outperforming the state in terms of percentages of students meeting or exceeding expectations. But when we apply the lens of how we did as a district, you begin to notice some gaps. This slide shows the same ELA data disaggregated by students in particular programs or categories such as students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged students, our Ls, and our students with 504 plans. With the exception of students with 504s in grades 8 and 9, and economically disadvantaged students in grade 9, there are gaps in all grades and categories. And now we'll take a look at that same data from math disaggregated by these same groups. Again, SPF male and female identified students outperform students in the states in all grades, but a gap shows up in 5th grade between males and females, with males outperforming in subsequent grades. See, they sort of start pretty close, very close in grade 4, but then something happens in grade 5 and continues on as the students get older. We see more gaps in mathematics when we disaggregate the data by race and ethnicity. What we don't know is how these results compare to state disaggregated data. So we don't know necessarily how our Hispanic and Latino students in Scotch Plains are performing in comparison to Hispanic and Latino students across the state, because the state hasn't published that data for us to really get a sense of. But we do know that in terms of performance compared to ourselves, we've got some performance gaps in lots of areas here. And here, with the exception of students with 504 plans, we see local gaps, meaning gaps between overall performance of SPF students and students in specific programs. And finally, we can look at this data disaggregated for the science results, too. Here we see our male and female students actually in inverse relationship according to proficient and advanced proficient percentages in grades 5 and 11. So in grades 5, males outperformed females, but in grade 11, that switches to females outperforming males. Not sure what that is all about, but it's worth taking a look at. The science results for racial and ethnic groups are very similar to those we saw in ELA and math. again, it's important to consider the n size of these groups as we make sort of conclusions about performance. And finally, these are students in programmatic categories as well. Again, the asterisk means that there are less than 10 students in each of those groups. So there are a few summary observations and actions I'd like to highlight from this first set of post-pandemic spring state assessment results. The first is that as a whole, our students continue to perform above state averages in all assessments given last spring. In ELA, at every grade level, more than 61% of our students scored at meeting or exceeding expectations, a range that wasn't adjusted to account for learning loss. So it's a comparison of pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. You know, it's an apple or oranges situation, and yet sort of applying the same standard across pre-pandemic and 2 years post-pandemic results. More than 70% of students in ELA grades 4, 8, and 9 met or exceeded expectations. And then fewer than 6% of students scored in the not yet meeting grade level expectations range. So the number of students that we really need to focus on in terms of catching up is a fairly small number. In math, students in grades 3, 4, and 5 performed similarly to pre-pandemic cohorts of students, and fewer than 7% scored in the not yet meeting grade level expectations range, which is slightly more than the pre-pandemic outcomes, but was somewhat expected given the challenges of teaching math in remote and hybrid formats. As we saw in many of the slides, as I said earlier, we grew in our middle range when looking at pre- and post-pandemic outcomes, suggesting that in the scheme of thinking about who we need to help catch up, move up, or keep up, we have to increase our efforts in terms of differentiation in our classrooms. And while not an observation per se, I will say that the data suggests to me that our teachers, our students, our families worked incredibly hard to keep students growing and working towards meeting state standards throughout the pandemic. In terms of actions, we need to, as we did before the pandemic, learn from this data and stay in a balanced relationship with it, using it as one of several measures to promote student learning. Introducing the MAP assessment in the spring of 2021 was a proactive move on our part, as MAP will help us to engage in cycles of data collection and analysis to identify strengths, areas in need of support, and to determine strategies to promote growth. We'll use this data to monitor progress for groups of students, as well as to work towards closing gaps in performance outcomes. There are several big action items I believe that we are taking that also are that directly map onto these results. First of all is professional development. This year we've made a big effort to train all of our teachers in culturally responsive instruction and trauma-informed instruction, two really important concepts coming out of the pandemic. Given our strategic plan, we'll continue to work to support this work this year. And the bottom thing under that in terms of professional development is that given our new supervisory structure, with grade span specific math and ELA supervisors, we'll be able to respond efficiently to teacher needs for support at both the K-5 and 6-12 levels. Building upon the results here and our alma mater suggestion that all to here belong, we'll also be collaborating with the University of Chicago to explore students' sense of belonging and feeling of inclusion in mathematics to understand how this impacts their performance. So thinking about, do I feel like I belong in my math class, and do I feel like math belongs to me? We'll also be partnering with our Tri-State Consortium, which is an organization that we proudly belong to. We're going to start studying the learning supports we have in place in our special education continuum to maximize student learning. So I think we have a really exciting year of learning opportunities ahead for us that will support our efforts on behalf of all students. And I wish Coach Maselli was here, since he could predict what happened in 10 years. Hopefully he could predict what's going to happen in May when we take these assessments again. And finally, I want to close with some wise words from our students that helped remind us to give the results discussed the proper perspective. We asked current high school students the following question: what do state test results not tell us about you as a student? And I'd love to invite board members to read student responses if they would.
Yes.
So, Ms. Mitchell, would you read this first response?
Sure. The state test results don't show how I learn and participate in class. It only shows my understanding of the questions on the test and not about what I have learned and am learning in class. AC.
Mrs. Siriani.
State test results don't show my other strengths in the classroom, such as my ability to teach others and my strong work ethic.
Mrs. Winkler.
They don't tell us if we're a leader and who we really are as a person. It doesn't show that we are well-rounded.
Mrs. Bauer.
State tests do not tell you about my capabilities as a student. See it.
Mrs. Boroff.
I do not think it reveals my creativity as a student. JS.
Jada.
It shows that I'm not as good a test taker. So.
And lastly, a student said, it doesn't show how smart you are. So our brilliant students remind us that behind every data point, there is a child. Something that post-secondary education is also discovering, as evidenced by a recent Forbes report that indicates that more than 80% of four-year colleges won't require standardized test results for fall 2023 admissions. They recognize, as we do, that our students are more than a data point or test score and have so much more to offer. Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. I stay here. Thanks, board members, for pitching in. You didn't know you were going to be part of the presentation.
Well, thank you for that very, very detailed report, Dr. McGarry. And if any of the board members or anyone on the table has a question, please ask Dr. McGarry.
I do.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you. In response to the statistic of 80% of colleges will not be accepting standardized tests, are they going to
They're not requiring them.
requiring them?
Mm-hmm.
Will they require other things instead, or it's just open to the whole profile of the student?
I think that really varies college to college, but I can get an answer for you from.
I didn't know if there was anything.
Yeah, no.
That's okay.
Maybe Jada knows the answer to that.
Yeah, I was actually going to address that. So for all my schools, I'm actually applying test optional. And I've gotten from a number of my schools, like, talking about how they really are focusing on a holistic report, at least for the fall 2023 admissions process.
Cool.
Thank you, Jada. Dr. McGarry.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions? Well, it was very thorough.
Great. So it will be online probably sometime tomorrow for those who are interested in taking a look at it in more depth. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McGarry. Okay, next on our instructional update, we have the 2021-2022 School Safety Data Systems and the HIB for January to June 2021, presented by Dr. Lisa Rabembis.
Good evening, everyone. I promise you my report will not be as beautiful, unfortunately, as Dr. McGarry's, and definitely not as interesting. But each year, the district reports via the SSDS, or the Student Safety Data System, the harassment, intimidation, and bullying information for the district, and the electronic violence and vandalism reporting system. So the data I'm presenting is based on 5 identified categories by the State Department of Education and is entered biannually into their reporting system. This data is reported publicly to the board 2 times a year. The following is the data for the reporting period of January 2022 to June of 2022, so last spring, basically. In the category of violence, we had 10 incidents. In vandalism, we had 0. For weapons, we had 2. Substance, we had 5. And for HIB, there were 13 confirmed cases and 30 alleged cases. Ms. McFadden will go through our HIB information to share with the board at this time.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
The following data is for the reporting period, of January 2022 to June 2022. Total number of investigations is 43. Number of confirmed HIV cases is 13, and the status of all investigations is completed. Our 43 investigations were completed by myself for Brunner and the high school, Caleb Franz for Coles, Christina Rusi for McGinn, Lori Ledowski for School 1, Amanda Wolf and Laura Markovitz for Terrell, Jason Cross and Christina Krasovsky for Nettingham, and our other investigators are April Chastain at Evergreen and Jessica Ness at McGinn. For remediation, we have referral to a school counselor / student assistance specialist for check-ins with the ESS counselor, whole class lesson on skin color and acceptance led by student assistance specialists, small group lessons with student assistance specialists on anti-bullying and race / racism, referral to ESS program, principal-led conflict resolution class discussion, student-led presentation on appropriate cell phone / social media usage. Trainings included Strong Connections Are the Key to Student Learning program, Building Equitable Systems, It's All About Emotions, The Foundation for Relationships, Connections, Successful Teachers and Successful Schools, staff meetings, presentations on social emotional learning and responsive classroom practices, school safety / climate team meetings, Rutgers, New Jersey Center for Character Education, Emotional Attunement in the Classroom and Therapy Office, District ABS / ABC meeting, New Jersey Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Refresher, SAGA meetings, Consent 101, Managing School Avoidance, Sandy Hook Promise, Elementary / Middle School Leadership Conference, the Metacognitive Student, and Second Step Cohort. Programming included end-of-the-year 8th grade milestone celebration events, morning announcements designed to promote kindness and student engagement, Pride Month activities designed to promote representation and allyship for and with the LGBTQ+ student population, Heroes Leadership Program, ESS Counseling Program, PALS, STAR, Agents for Change, LEADS Program, Health and Wellness Committee, End of the Year School Climate Survey, World Heritage Month morning announcements, Equity and Social Justice Faculty Reflections Program, Think Purple Week, School Spirit Week, Women's History Month programs, Black History Month programs, Power Hour Lunch, Read Across America, Reading Buddies, McGinn Day of Global Cultures, Teachers Staff Appreciation Week, morning meetings and other responsive classroom activities, Second Step SEL lessons, ACE, Career Explorations Day, Field Day, Student Spotlight, Green Dot, NJSBA, Anti-Bullying Lessons and Activities, Bucket Fillers, Mental Health Club, 9th grade letters to incoming 8th graders, Caring Contact, International SEL Day activities, Cyber Safety Student and Parent presentations, Dave Cilio Memorial Color Run, incoming 4th grade visits, Brain Challenge Assembly, Student Assistance Support Groups, and Growth Mindset Social Skills Group. Are there any questions? Thank you.
I have one question. Yeah. So thank you for sharing all of those activities and programs.
Mm-hmm.
Is that list available for us to visit, like Dr. McGarry's?
So I
data
don't have
report?
it. I don't have it listed online, but if anyone would like it for any reason, you could always reach out to me. I have copies of every program that we did in the district.
Usually get that.
Perhaps if we send the list to Robin, then we could think of a way to post it.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, LaKendra. It was great. Well, that looks like we've used up all of our instructional updates?
We did it.
All right. And that brings us to our first public comment session. In accordance with the Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools Bylaw 0164, 0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments. Maximum is three minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first, and if time remains, speakers may address other matters. Speakers, please come to the podium, state your full name and the town in which you reside. Please note, board members should not be approached, and in addition, the board members cannot respond regarding concerns of individual students or staff members. Such matters should be addressed with the superintendent's office. So if you'd like to make a public comment, please come to the podium at this time.
Hi, Laura Melendez, Fanwood.
Thank you.
First, I'd like to commend Ms. Fitzgerald and the High School Marketing Club for organizing the Women in STEM and Business Night at the Scotch Plains Fanwood High School. As an engineer and a marketer, I was super excited to see so many young women interested in these fields and so many professionals in our community that came out to support our students. It was a fantastic night, and I hope events like this continue. With that, I'd like to pivot to the pandemic learning loss. When the pandemic hit, the school moved to remote teaching. At the time, I applauded that decision, and I still believe that following the science was the right thing to do for all. That said, now that we know that learning loss that our students have endured, it's time to take action. Thank you, Dr. McGarry, for the comprehensive report that you just showed us. I think like the auditor that started the night, I would also like to understand how the COVID grants are being used. Part of what we learned today, and not surprisingly, is that students are disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And those include students from low-income families, students of colors, English learners, children with disabilities, students with experiencing homelessness, children in foster care, and migratory students. While that list that I read is a countrywide list, I think the results we saw today reflect just that. So my questions for the board is how are you ensuring that the remedial actions that are going to be taken for this learning loss are reaching the students that need it the most? I would like to see reporting of the actions and how it's targeted in the website as you guys build your plans. In addition, I would like to understand what is the status of the Wellness and Equity Committee and the Racial Equity Task Force, and when will the execution plans and performance indicators against the strategic plan will be shared with the community. Thank you very much, and have a good night and a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Ms. Melendez. Any other public comments to be heard at this time?
Gary Morris, Fanwood.
Thank you.
I had a really good conversation with a lady that teaches in another school district but lives in this school district. She teaches African American studies. And the one thing that she spoke about was her daughter going to the schools in Scotch Plains Fanwood didn't see the representation of black teachers in the school district. And I began thinking about it, and really I'm one to think of solutions. How can we solve this issue? Because this is a legitimate thing that a child wants to see somebody that looks like that. And I looked at the statistics, and it's statistically impossible because there's just not enough teachers. So if you were to poach a teacher from another school district, that school district is going to be short somebody, and it would just go around and around. So I came to the idea of what if we created a guest teacher program? And one of the examples, let's say a Felton Jones, for instance, who is a local restaurant owner, a catering business. He comes in and teaches part of a cooking class one day. In other words, taking it from the club level, bringing it actually into the classroom. I think you provide an opportunity for kids to see somebody who looks like them in front of the class, gives them an opportunity to dream big. And also my former next door neighbor, Todd Robinson, he former ambassador to Guatemala. Imagine a guy like that coming in and teaching part of a social studies class for a couple of days. That gives kids something to aspire to and dream about, and I think it's a really unique way, and you could be on the cutting edge of solving a problem, and you give the opportunity for kids to possibly think, hey, maybe I could be a teacher, maybe I could own a restaurant, maybe I could work for the government and be an ambassador someday. And I just think it would be a really unique way of solving that short term until we could get more people into the system. That's it.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Morris. Any other comments? Seeing none, then we'll close this portion of the meeting and move on. Committee reports. Are there any committee reports to be heard? Mr. Murray.
Student activities and athletics met earlier in the week. Just real quick, Dr. Heisey presented an overview of 17 specific clubs at the high school, which is only a fraction of the total number of clubs that we have. He also provided some updates on Raiders Don't Risk It event that was held for the seniors, Women in STEM event that was held by DECA. Senior Sunrise was held on the football field, and they're planning their senior sunset, senior breakfast, and some other things, going on with the seniors this year. I believe the seniors will also have chosen to not do the senior car parade. They prefer to do a senior car decorating event. So more to come when that information is known. Mr. Miller went through the fall summary of sports. As you saw tonight, we talked about a little bit of it. So cross country, girls tennis, girls soccer, boys soccer, girls volleyball, football, cheerleading, field hockey, gymnastics, all of which had, very strong years. And the last item that was talked about was the continued discussion about a potential dedication for former soccer coach Tom Brzezinski. So that was that report.
Okay.
And then we also had a combined Facilities and Finance Committee meeting.
Okay.
We talked about the school expansion project update, that not all costs have been submitted yet to the business office, so there's still some architectural redesign work being done. And then there were some board resolutions that were going to be put forth, some security camera upgrades, shared service agreement for resource officers, some roof repair needs at Evergreen, Brunner, and Nettingham. Discussion around before and aftercare going out for bid. The audit presentation, which we had our presentation this evening. And that is it.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Are there any questions? Either report? Okay. Thank you. Other reports?
I have a curriculum committee report.
Ms. Soriani?
Okay. The curriculum committee met, last week, November 8th. And we had a very exciting agenda item with the addition of 2 courses at the high school for the next academic year, which are on the agenda tonight for board approval. One of the courses is American Pop Culture, And it's going to be a semester-long course for grades 10 to 12, offering an alternative to AP US History for students who might not want to take that course. And in the course, students will analyze and investigate how society impacts popular culture and the way pop culture impacts society. There will be thematic units. Students will have an opportunity to examine pop culture developments by analyzing a variety of areas, including mass media, music, literature, comics, film, radio, TV, sports, fashion, toys, and advertising. And it will also align with our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, because students will have an opportunity to see themselves in the curriculum by analyzing pop culture throughout U.S. history, including investigating race, class, gender, ethnicity in our society. And there are no budget considerations for that course. The second course, which Jada mentioned earlier as part of her, her survey as a course of interest, is AP Psychology. And this course will be offered for students who want an intensive, in-depth study of major topics in psychology. It'll be the equivalent of the an intro to psychology course that is usually taken during the first year of college. And then students who take this course will be expected to take the AP exam in May. It will be open to juniors and seniors. Currently, we offer Introduction to Psychology, which is a half-year elective. And therefore, some students might opt for the AP Psychology course in lieu of the half-year elective. Nationally, AP Psychology is the 5th most popular AP course, with over 280,000 students having taken that AP exam last year, 2021. Budgetary considerations for this new course will include $120 per textbook, and the quantity, of course, will be dependent on student enrollment, and then professional development for teachers, which is $750 per teacher for 2 teachers to attend the AP Psychology Summer Institute. The other agenda item was reviewing for the second time the 2021-22 District Assessment Report, which Dr. McGarry reviewed in public tonight.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Soriani. Any questions? Thank you. Any other reports?
I just think an update, I think we're expecting to have a wellness and equity update, report update in the next meeting.
Okay.
So that just should answer.
We'll look forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Yes.
Right, if there are no further committee reports, we'll go to letters to the board. 3 emails, and 2 emails and 1 letter were received from the public, and they were forwarded to the appropriate administrator. Board motions, superintendent report, Dr. Mast.
Thank you. So 1S, move that the board acknowledges the receipt of the October 22 monthly enrollment numbers. 2S, move that the board approves the 22-23 out-of-district placements. 3S, move that the board approves the superintendent's decisions in the HIB cases discussed in executive session on October 20th. 4S, move that the Board of Education approves the listed field trips. And 5S, move that the board approves the following 2 new courses that Mrs. that Stephanie just shared with us.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard Mrs. Mitchell first. Any question or discussion on those 5 items? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's curriculum
Curriculum.
decision.
Yeah, that's
Excuse
a
me.
roll
That's a
call.
roll call. Mr. Jones, will you please call the roll?
The second. Who was the second?
Mrs. Mitchell?
Sorry, Evan. That's
And
what I thought.
Mr. Murray.
That's what I come from. Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Next up is Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
And Ms. Bauer?
Yes.
Mrs. Boroff?
Yes.
Ms. Suriani?
Yes.
Ms. Winkler?
Yes.
And Dr. Kolkowski.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Dr. Mast. Personnel report.
Yes, I move that the board approves the superintendent's recommendations that we discussed in exec this evening.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Mrs. Mitchell? Seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
It's a tie.
Any question or discussion about the personnel? Seeing none, Mr. Jones, will you call the roll on that?
Ms. Winkler,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Bauer,
Yes.
Mrs. Boroff,
Yes.
Ms. Suriani,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Dr. Kolkowski.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you, Dr. Mass.
You're welcome.
So, business report, Mr. Jones, whenever you're ready.
Yep. So number 1 is the auditor report. Number 2, staff training. Number 3 is the security cameras that Mr. Murray mentioned, and that is being paid for through a state grant. Number 4 is some disposal, some older library books. Number 5, asset disposal, some older items. Number 6 is budget assumptions, which, for example, one is just saying that my assumptions around gas prices going up, things like that. So it's the kickoff for the budget, and a lot of those may change as we go on, but this sort of kicks it off as a baseline. Number 7, non-public dollars. This we have to do a resolution to allocate these funds. Number 8 is our shared service agreement with Scotch Plains regarding our security officers. Number 9 is donation from PTA, playground equipment. Number 10 is just a motion that lets us keep our athletic funds locally without returning them back and forth to the bank every time. Number 11 is the roof repairs, Mr. Murray discussed. Number 12 is the results of our technology bid. These are just outdated at past over 4 years of use. Number 13 is, as I discussed, going out to bid for the before after care. Number 14 is just carryover IDEA funds that we need to allocate to this year. 15 is theater vendor for the play. 16 is related services related for special education. And then 17, these are sort of standard reports here, fire drills. 18 is our financial reports. 19 are disbursements. And 20 is our payment of bills. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. We have a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any question or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Board policies, Mrs. Winkler.
Hi, at this time, I move that the board approve second reading and adoption for the following policies. Policy 1511, Board of Education Website Accessibility. Policy 2415, Every Student Succeeds Act. Policy and the corresponding regulations, 5513, Care of School Property. Policy 5722, Student Journalism. Policy and the corresponding regulations, 2432, School-Sponsored Publications, to be abolished. That's it.
So Mrs. Winkler made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any question or discussion on these policies? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. And that brings us to new board business. Do we have any new board business?
Here's something I'd like to share.
Mrs. Mitchell.
I wanted to update everybody on the mental health services that are going on in Trenton right now and the discussion of different policies that are happening. Currently, a decades-old program that's being used in districts across the state is called the School-Based Youth Services. It's a school-centric system that serves 25 to 30,000 students, which is about 2% of the 1.3 million students in the public school system. That's a budget of $30 million. Governor Murphy is working with the New Jersey Department of Children and Families Commissioner Christine Norbert Berger on a proposed plan called the NJ4S, which means New Jersey Statewide Student Support Services. It's being called a hub and spoke program. And the idea that Murphy says is to cast a wider net to reach more students for their mental health needs. It would be a tiered program offering assemblies, mentoring, and off-site counseling. The hub that Murphy speaks about is the administrative part, and the spokes are the local services. Murphy and Ms. Norbert Berger proposed 15 hubs across the state serving 1 to 2 counties with a budget of $48 million. Yesterday, there was an outcry about this from current schools and parents and administration critiquing the program, the NJ4S program, that the transition wasn't quite there yet, that if this was rolled out for next school year, the student services would be curtailed to abruptly and the students would be in a tough place. Murphy heard the cry. This was announced yesterday, and he said that he will delay. The headlines read, if you look on NewJersey.com or other websites about this, it says program stopped because of outcry. It's a little sensational. It's not quite stopped. It's temporarily stopped. Murphy stated he will delay the NJ4S program with the stipulation to current counseling departments with increased accountability, monitoring, and new reporting. They're going to continue to work on the NJ4S system. Murphy committed to keeping the school-based youth services in the state budget for the fiscal year 2024. The New Jersey 4S is up for bid for different psychologists across the state to give their input to better the transition plan. And interestingly, concurrently, a law that's presently in the Senate for Educational Committee is called the Mental Health Service Referral. It's called A4086, if anybody would like to look it up, which permits student assistant counselors, school psychologists to refer a student to outside mental health professionals. So reading that, I thought that the road is being paved for the NJ4S with that being in the Senate Education Committee now. I think it's all positive, looking forward for our students, but there will be a transition over the next few years. And if I see any other updates or information that I think is relevant, I'm happy to share it.
Well, thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Other board business? Liaison reports? Go ahead.
I have a liaison report for CPAG, the Special Education Parent Advisory Group.
Okay.
Just a brief update on our last meeting, which was November 7th. So I just checked on the website, and as far as I can tell, it's not up yet, but to be coming would be the first annual picture gallery. I really encourage everyone, go to, if you visit under the Board of Education's SPF 12, go to the Special Services, and there's a link to the CPAG site. And on that site, you have access to their accessible site that they have updated that includes minutes from their last meeting. It includes their upcoming schedule. At this last meeting, which was very useful and informative information, and the presentation is also available on the SPF CPAG site. Dr. Rabimbis gave us an update on the compensatory services, which is, for anybody who has questions, I really do advise you to look through that and then to follow up with Dr. Rabimbis if you have questions. The next meeting is December 12th, which is soon. So, and that's on Monday night. It's half hybrid and half here. So just a monthly reminder to check in with CPAG if you're looking for information on special education.
Thank you, Mrs. Boroff. Any other liaison report? Mrs. Bauer.
Garden State Coalition of Schools met yesterday, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of things in the legislative update. There are a lot of competing bills right now related to tutoring and to address the learning loss that in that area and actually in the one that Mrs. Mitchell was talking about. I think there are concerns about some of these things not being left at the district level and the money not flowing to the district. So you have more private vendors or people who are getting involved in delivering services. So with the tutoring, it'll be great to have money, although I think they also in some at least one of the bills talks about donations as well. But I think the state will put money into tutoring. It's just whether they're going to send it to the districts and let them pay teachers and people who are trained to really do what they're calling high impact tutoring, or they're just going to have it floating out there for vendors. So that's certainly something that's of concern. And the same with the hubs, thinking about the relationships that students have with local counselors and people already in their schools as opposed to going to these hubs. Another bill that's out there right now is the governor has created this school staffing shortage task force. It has 25 members, so it's a big task force, but it's including a lot of people from a lot of organizations. But one of the things related to the staffing shortage that is also coming up before the Ed Committee soon is related to waiving some of the requirements for Montessori teachers to become teachers. And so I think there's a lot of concern that that's kind of a slippery slope. We have good schools, good number 1 or 2 in the country all the time, good teachers, teacher prep, and so waiving the requirements and not even sticking to the alternate route requirements that are currently in place is something to be concerned about. So those were some of the things. The speaker was the president of the New Jersey Council for Teachers of English, and the next meeting is December 14th.
Thank you, Mrs. Bauer.
And I don't know if anyone else had something else to add for Garden State, but.
Any other liaison reports?
Should have a report from the meeting last night.
All
Last
right.
night was the Union County School Boards Association meeting, but I left all of my notes at home. So I will give that report at our next meeting. What I will say is that the speakers who came were talking about communications, and they were fantastic. They had lots of good ideas. And
Brunswick School District, the 2
yeah,
representatives.
from New
that were there.
Brunswick. Yep. So that'll be a good report when I give it.
We look forward
So-
to that, Mrs. Winkler. That's great. Thank you. Any other liaison reports? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 2 OBB, request to attend workshop or workshop reports. Seeing none, approval of the minutes. We have to approve minutes for October 2nd for the board self-evaluation, October 6th, the executive session and open agenda meeting, October 20th, the public meeting, executive session, and the regular public meeting. Does anybody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Murray? Any questions or comments about these minutes?
Was it October 2nd, October 8th? October 2nd was a Sunday.
It was a Saturday, that meeting.
That was the 8th, right?
It was the 8th, yes. So correction, instead of October 2nd, it should be October 8th.
I wasn't there, so I have to abstain.
Is anybody going to make the motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Soriani. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Boroff. Okay.
Can I make that motion and Evan second?
Well, he just said he couldn't make the motion, so that's why.
I couldn't make the motion because I wasn't at that meeting.
Oh,
So we got Stephanie in.
okay, just checking.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Abstaining from the October 8th meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Murray. So motion passes. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion carries. And that brings us to our second and final public comment portion, which is in accordance with the Scotch Plains Fanwood Public School Bylaw 0164-0165. The meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments. Maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. Speakers, please come to the podium and state your full name and the town in which you reside. Please note that board members should not be approached. In addition, the board members cannot respond regarding concerns of individual students or staff members. Such matters should be addressed with the superintendent's office. So if you'd like to make a public comment, please come to the podium at this time.
Gary Morris, Fanwood.
Thank you.
It was great seeing Coach Brock here tonight. My son was on the first team that won the county championship, and part of coaching is assembling a team and everything like that. My son went from not participating in any, I think he played freshman soccer, but he stopped after that, and landed up as a senior playing volleyball and winning a county championship. So it was pretty cool. So the reason I bring this up is coaches are one of those things that really impact a child, and I'm sure some of you have seen this situation with the girls softball team. There's an assistant coach that would like to be the head coach. If that's something that can be reconsidered, or there's a petition that's been routing, and there's quite a number of amazing stories about the impact this man has had on the lives of these students. If there's some way to reconsider, if that's not a done deal yet, of getting somebody from the outside, by using somebody from, that's in our school district, I think is a cool thing for kids to see. As first of all, I think he teaches at the middle school, so he's actually kind of scouting for the team as it is, and I just think it's a really good thing to consider. So anyway, I don't know what the process is or how we hire coaches, but I think it's important to try to keep the people who are within the district getting these coaching jobs if at all possible, especially if they're adequately qualified. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Morris. Would anybody else like to make a public comment this evening? Seeing no one, then we'll close this portion of the meeting and move on to the upcoming scheduled meetings. Wednesday, November 30th, will be coffee with the superintendent at 10 a.m. in the Media Center at Terrell Middle School. On Thursday, December 15th, regular public meeting, 7:30 for executive session, 8 p.m. for the public portion in the administration building here. Any remarks for the good of the order? Mrs. Winkler.
Well, first I want to thank Jada for her report that she gave earlier. Welcome. It's great to have you here finally.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also, I'd like to comment on the artwork in the room. I love when we get new artwork. It's always fun. It's beautiful, and I can't wait to walk around and get a closer look at it. And I am eager and excited to go see the play tomorrow night.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Anyone else want to make some comments? Mrs. Mitchell?
I wanted to, again, congratulate Chris and your team for the report tonight. We can have all these ideas of how to help our students. But if we don't have the roots, the financial roots, we go nowhere. So thank you for allowing us all to do what we do because of what you do. I also wanted to thank everybody who worked on the college and career night last night at the high school. So exciting. Students from different grades were there, and seeing where the Raiders education is taking them beyond our walls, and that was exciting and full of hope. So thanks to everybody who made that happen.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. Anybody else want to make a comment?
I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the time at home and off of work with your family, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you, Mrs. Bohr. If there are no further comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Boroff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Good night, everyone. Thank you.